today in this session we're going to be talking about button stands or button wraps. I need you to look at everything or every garment that you have that has buttons on it, and to understand that when you have a garment that has an opening down the front or wherever it is, your centre front is here, the overlap will come here, and then your buttons and buttonholes sit back from that line, and then underneath this is going to wrap under as much as that wraps over. So that is called a button wrap, or it's called a button stand. Now there's lots and lots of different finishes that you can do on these, and I've put up worksheets on Canvas for you to have a look at. But what we're going to talk about now is just the concept of a button stand and the basics of creating the overlap that we've just discussed there. Alright then, so to do this I'm going to draw around the front, giving myself a left front and a right front. You don't need to do this when you're making the pattern, you'll just do the one. I'm going to do it so I can show you exactly what happens. You only really need that front edge to show this, but I'm going to give you the whole kit and caboodle. Move the darts to there, just to give you a clean front. Sorry, a bit wobbly. That's better. I'm not even talking you through what I'm doing there, I'm just assuming you know exactly what's going on, because we've covered it over and over again. And we're not actually worried about what the dart's doing. What we're worried about, or what we're thinking about, is what's happening on this centre front. So here's our centre front, and as we've just discussed, the buttons and buttonholes sit on the centre front. So you can have, usually your buttonholes go with the strain of the garment. So in theory you'd have your buttonholes running across, because that's where the tension is. Often on shirts that's not the case, and the buttonhole will sit on the centre front like so. So that'll be on the right hand side if you're making for women. On the left hand side, this is where your button will sit, on the centre front. So that's me just reiterating really what I said earlier. So I'm going to erase those because they're just going to complicate things. Before you can do a button wrap, you need to know what size your button is. I'm going to say here that we're working with a shirt button, which is about 1 centimetre. So I am going to add on 1.5 to my centre front, and that's going to be the wrap over for this side, wrap under for the other side. Here we go, there it is, that's that. And in this most simple scenario that we're playing with here, we are saying that this is just going to fold back underneath, so it's like a really simple button stand. You will, of course, if you're going to alter the neckline, you do that before you start doing what we do next. So if I've added on 1.5 centimetres, I now need to add on 3 centimetres. So whatever I added on here, I'm going to add double. So I've got 3 centimetres, which will wrap under. And I now need to decide how that will be finished. So is that going to be finished with an overlock, in which case it can stay as it is, or are we going to turn it under so that you see no raw edge? If we're going to do that, we need to add 1 centimetre or possibly 1/2 centimetre. Sometimes in men's shirts they actually add on almost the 3 centimetres again, so it comes back and gives you lots of strength on which to work your buttonholes. Usually in women's wear we'll put Stay-Flex just on this piece, so Stay-Flex is fuse. Okie dokes. So now I've got it that far, I need to cut up this edge. And how this pattern will work, how this button wrap will work, is that we will fold it on that first line. So the first extension that we did, that was 1.5, is going to be folded. And then this second extension, which was the centimetre to turn under and neaten, gets turned under. And this is what this looks like. Now we're going to want to make sure that this piece, these layers that go underneath, follow the same line as your neckline. I'm just going to run through here with my tracing wheel, and I'll do so at the bottom as well, and we'll be able to unwrap that to see what shapes these extensions need to be. And they have a slight curve that follows the curve of the neckline. So that's our right side if you're looking at women's clothing, which I'm sort of assuming we are. Okay, I now need an identical piece to that. So if it wasn't that I was demonstrating, you'd say cut a pair of those for this one. With some of the more complicated button stands, you don't cut a pair because the left and the right will be different. I'm not too worried about you getting to grips with the more difficult options. I just want you to understand the theory behind this wrap. Is that in the same place? Oh, no, it's there. Okay. Even though we're not looking at the darts, that was me just making sure I was getting the dart in the same place on the left as it was on the right. Again, I'm not even talking you through this. You know what I'm doing. There's my dart in, but we don't really care about that. So this is our centre front, and I added 1.5, didn't I? Did 1.5, then I added 3. I'm just doing this from the measurements on my Pattern Master, and then I added 1. And I've got just enough paper. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to fold this in exactly the same way as we folded the first one. So not on the centre front, this is on the first fold is on that extension that we did at 1.5. Need to trim off that. So if you were using a 2 centimetre button, then you would probably do a 2 centimetre extension for that first fold. It's the second fold, which is the fold that neatens it. Remembering that you'll have a strip of fuse on the inside there. The strip of fuse is just to strengthen the strengthen the fabric really, so that you can have buttonholes worked on it, and you can sew your buttons onto it, and it will all sit beautifully. Sorry, I should have drawn these on before I trace through. So like I say, if you were doing something as simple as this, you'd cut the one pattern piece and you would say cut a pair, and then you would mark on it where the positions of your buttons and buttonholes are. But this is just to illustrate that. On this side we'll have our buttonholes. Now buttonholes, where they go, it's entirely up to you. I mean, usually on women's wear I'd say start with one at the bust point, and then if you have one at the top, then you want to maybe have one in between those two, which comes about 8.5 centimetres, which is about right really. 8.5. Oh, I just squeeze one on the lower edge here. Personally, I like lots of buttons. I'd have them one in between as well. But again, that's a design choice where your buttons are. They're both practical and a design choice. So if that were the case, I would then have my buttonhole either running across that way and sitting just over the centre front, or I would have my buttonhole sitting on the centre front if it's going to run vertically. Exactly opposite is where my button would be. And then the centre fronts sit on top of each other when it gets buttoned up. That is the theory of a button wrap, button stand. For all the fancy twiddly bits you can do, have a look on Canvas, because there's lots of information there. Okay?